All right, so this video is about the men's standards for running in relation to their body weight. I feel like people don't necessarily talk about that very often, and it's an interesting take, but I've been doing this long enough. My brother and I have been doing this long enough to be able to understand that body weight plays a factor, especially with men when it comes to running. And I don't feel like there's very many guidelines or standards, but 15 plus years of experience, being a strength and conditioning coach for over 10 years, working with former athletes, current athletes, a lot of general population, people that have ran in college, people that compete in these like races somewhat regularly, understanding what that population is. I can provide a breakdown of what the general pop is pretty good as far as excellent, what I consider excellent, what I consider great, what I consider good from there. I'm only going to talk about excellent and good because I'm going to have all this this essential chart breakdown in the comments that you can look at afterwards yourself. But the excellent part I can kind of give background to. If you're over 185 pounds and you can run at 10 miles an hour for more than 5 minutes, or to actually maybe be able to complete the 6-minute mile, excellent. Don't care what your background is, anything like that, excellent. Greater than 200 pounds. If you're able to break a 7-minute mile, so if you're able to run at 9 miles an hour, excellent. Rarely see it. Go into a commercial gym, take a 200-pound guy, put him on the treadmill for 5 minutes at 9 miles an hour. If he can do that, excellent. 225, so that 25-pound jump, that normally changes the archetype of that person. Normally that's a taller person, so they have a longer stride. So this is where I break it as far as an 8 mile an hour. If they can run like a 7:30 mile, I consider that excellent because they're a bigger person. So if you're greater than 225 pounds and you're gonna run 7:30 mile, excellent. Add an asterisk. I remember my brother was in college. He's a heavyweight wrestler. He ended up being really good, ended up spending time playing professional football afterwards. He was able to do 7:30 miles as a heavyweight, but he was like 280 to 300 pounds. So with anything, this scales up to be incredible. But you're talking about one of the best big men in general at that time in the country, irregardless of sport. So you have like a context there. But if you're over 225, you can crank out a 7:30 mile. You're already rare, and more likely than not, you're probably an athlete. 240 pounds, greater than 240 pounds, at an 8:30 mile. That's a large person in general, probably a former athlete. They have lean mass and whatnot. Greater than 270 pounds. This is an interesting weight to me because that is the weight I feel like the guys are more likely than not to be discouraged to run in general. So if you're able to run at 6 miles an hour for a 10-minute mile for maybe 4 or 5 minutes, stuff like that, I consider that excellent because that is a weight that you're carrying enough weight that you probably have more body fat than you want. You probably have enough muscle if you're able to do it at that speed, but I consider that excellent. Greater than 300 pounds is anywhere 4 to 5 miles an hour. If you can hold that for 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes, half that amount of time it takes to actually run that, I consider that excellent. So like I said before, I'm gonna skip great on in together because you can look at it in the comments and whatnot. And then I'm gonna go over to good. A 6-minute mile, running at 10 miles an hour for 4 or 5 minutes, or actually the full 6 minutes. That's a competitive runner. That's good for only a competitive runner. Like, that's the only one who's kind of poo-pooing that is if they're a competitive runner. If somebody's turning their nose up to that, they do stuff, specifically in that field. 9 miles an hour. If you can hold 9 miles an hour on the treadmill for 4 or 5 minutes, or actually the full mile, you're an avid runner. That is also good for someone who's 165 to 180 is what once you're like 155, you're a spindly kind of guy, you should be able to crank away at 9 miles an hour. And it should not like capsize you, you know what I mean? I think the universal thing for, regardless of your ability level, 7:30 mile, running at 8 miles an hour is good for everyone. Everyone, that's to me like the marker of guys in general. Like, oh, he can crack an 8-minute mile. He's underneath an 8-minute mile. That's good across the board. I don't care necessarily about your weight. Then once we get to 7 miles an hour, you're at an 8:30 mile, 185 to 220 pounds. That's good. Below that, you should probably be able to do a little bit more. You're probably deconditioned if you can't do that. If you're less than that weight, if you can't do that, you're probably deconditioned. 10-minute mile, 6 miles an hour, 200 to 250 pound guy, that's still good. Like, If you're 235 pounds, you could run at 6 miles an hour for half that amount of time or run a 10-minute mile. Consider that good. That's a person that's working out regularly. They're in pretty good shape. Or that's a person that completely gassed themselves to do it. I'm not addressing the recovery, how well they did it and how the recovery looks. 225 to 275, that's when you're going to get the heavier guys probably like just trucking along. It's working hard. I consider that still good because that is such a wide range of body type between a 50-pound spread. 225, that guy could be 5'9", that guy could be 6'4". That's a lot of different, but I consider that good because you are displacing yourself from your earth over time, and at least for 5 minutes. That's a lot of ground force contact. I give that credit. And then running at 4 miles an hour is only good to me if you're over 250 pounds and you're deconditioned. If you're like, I don't work out at all, I was able to run at 4 miles an hour for half the amount of time, so say for 7 minutes, or I was able to run a 15-minute mile. That's probably somebody who's deconditioned, and I will consider it good if that person's over 250 pounds. So you can discuss in the comments. I'm pretty sure I'm right with this, but I'm open to discussion with that. But this is a lot of experience in what I've seen, and I don't know. You let me know.